Tactical trends come and go, and we've seen this with Pep Guardiola mentioning the trend that Iraola has put in place at Bournemouth and how that high-intensity model is becoming more and more popular. But as you can see here with the slow and intricate play of Manchester City and the fast and direct play of Bournemouth and Nottingham Forest, a lot of teams want to land somewhere in the middle, being able to apply both styles of play in different phases of the game. So how are teams looking to combine the two philosophies of these two guys and create the ultimate tactical trend in the Premier League? Let's have a look.
So, with this new tactical trend, have we just gone full circle back to the old days of little and large, big man up top, and a smaller man playing off him? Not quite, but I think the aspects are coming back to that way. Now, Guardiola spoke a lot about the sort of how man-to-man pressing is becoming more and more and more fashionable. And I think as that becomes the case, as lots of players start to get man pressed in pretty much any system you play, across the front line, in the midfield, and pretty much everywhere you're trying to go man-to-man. That will then leave, again, man-to-man positions across the back line. So you could end up with 3v3s, 2v2s, when you go direct across the back line, which is what is leading to this sort of new. It's not new because, like we say, it's returning back to the old paradigms of direct football and how it can work so well. Because when you end up with these larger spaces, and what you're going to end up with going man to man, as City did against Chelsea, you draw this space, this line, and that width, and not width, the vertical area becomes larger. That distance becomes larger. You have to cover. So now, when you go direct into these areas, there is this much space that a defender, say they're man to man here, has to cover back towards that player. This is now going to give these players the opportunity to sort of swarm around each other and create. So this idea of a big man up top going direct into him over the press, and then him being able to either win his 1v1 battle, bring the ball down and go himself, spin off into the corners, or the idea of then covering him and playing him with a sharp shooting, smaller man who is good at carrying, a high shot volume player, and is going to latch onto these sort of second balls, make runs in beyond, almost to allow this player to become the target man. And this player is actually going to be the more direct one, making those sort of in behind movements, trying to play off the flicks and trying to make things happen in and around the box, just being a nuisance. And that's exactly what Marmoush did. And that's exactly what Foden can do coming inside as well, because then what you get is this triangle. And what City did really well is they pushed up their fullbacks really nice and high to make sure those width, there's still width on the pitch, and it's going to draw players out so that they can't all stay inside and mark this triangle. But by doing that, it's not only allowing Haaland to succeed and draw men away with these guys making runs, but it's also allowing Haaland to then make combinations with these players who can either get a shot off from the edge of the box, they can make something happen themselves. We saw Marmoush take a good volume of shots against Chelsea, and he's averaging something like 4.11 per 90 this season. So I think that's very much in the mindset of Guardiola, of bringing in a player who can be that double team with Haaland, and they can create something really, really special there. And I think that the overall consensus of this idea, I think, is something that's coming back into fashion, and I think it's going to continue to come back into fashion with the man-to-man pressing systems, because we've now also seen Ollie Watkins linked with move to Arsenal, and everybody thinks that obviously that could be very simple. He just plays up front. But I do just want to quickly discuss, if we move on to the Arsenal board. Where is it? Here. The idea of Watkins playing in that sort of left position. Now, instantly, there's a few different ways to do this. Now, in the City case, Marmoush was playing off the left. So just to experiment with it, if Watkins was playing off the left, or in that sort of left inside forward position, it would then allow those two to become that two up front, like we said earlier. Havertz a bit more of a sort of stick and pin target man. And I think Havertz, where he lacks, is actually his sort of killer instincts in the box. So his ability to almost be that most advanced, but still almost a target man as a playmaker, drop little clever passes off to someone like Watkins, who's actually going to be your primary sort of box threat in terms of getting into those channels, making things happen, and getting a high volume of shots off, like we said with Marmoush. Now, one way of doing that would be for Watkins to start off the left. And again, you'd have him come inside. You'd maybe have Erdegaard sort of occupying in here, Timber in here, and then Skelly would probably have to sort of, or whoever would have to offer the width on the outside as well. Watkins is somebody, and I think that's why with Marmoush, you're also getting somebody who can, if you really need them to, they can hold the width and they can be effective from this area whilst they're not wingers. They're not stereotypical wingers. Watkins, again, I don't think it's really in his game. I think with Watkins, you would really want him to be much closer to Havertz, whereas with Marmoush, I think you get a lot more sort of variety of direction. But the idea with Watkins, I think, could be the same. Now, another way to do this would be essentially Partey doesn't play. Let's say that's Martinelli. That means Havertz and Erdegaard are essentially playing as the two midfielders. You've got Havertz in that left 8 and Watkins up front. But what instead you're going to have is Havertz is still going to push forward and he's still going to be that target man for Watkins, or say it's vice versa like this, so that Watkins can cut inside on that right foot. But you still have that dynamic. You have more stereotypical width providers on the wing. And then Lewis Skelly, who's so good in the middle of the park, can sort of drive into here. Timber can come into here. And you sort of create that diamond as well in there. I think that could genuinely work exceptionally well. Of course, the big thing with that would then be is Rice being at the base. Some people like it, some people don't. Some people think he could be a little bit more effective as that sort of left-sided number 8 carrier type. But there's argument to be made that this would be a really well balanced, because you've got these two in here that are really good defensively as well, but they can also carry the ball in these spaces. And then you've got Erdegaard, who would then have a bit more of a free role to not only impact this right-hand side with Saka, but also to then roam over to here and allow Timber and Saka to sort of create well together, and can sort of give support on this left-hand side where there has been a few issues for Arsenal since Xhaka left. So I think the idea there, that could be something really interesting, and it gives you that same sort of dynamic, not there that we've been talking about, of Havertz and Watkins. And to speak about the last one, if I stop sharing this one, if we speak about one more, which is going to be a Chelsea example. But the idea, again, someone like Tell, okay? Now, in my other sort of, I did a TikTok about this, and it has Osserman instead of Jackson, because I think that would work better in the stereotypical sort of little and large. Like, Tell isn't little, he's 6 foot, and Jackson's not large, he's 6'1", and even Osserman 6'1". But it's not just about the actual height, it's also just the behaviours, like we said, a bit more of a target man. So if that was, say, Osimhen, and then Tell is the one who is going to be our Marmoush, he's going to be our Watkins, that high volume shooter who's going to make runs off the back, connect with the sort of focal point in the middle, and make things happen in this area. So that would allow these two to be that. Now, in Chelsea's case, that would probably mean someone like Cucurella has to hold the width out here, or at least support for the width. And again, I'm not saying this is going to happen for Chelsea, because, for example, I don't think Maresca would do this. But my point is more so the idea of where this shift could take the Premier League going forwards with these players. And again, I think that with this, if James was to go here, you create that diamond in midfield. Again, you've got a solid sort of box-to-box players who can play in those half spaces, but also retreat. Maybe not so much Enzo retreat, but he's been doing better at that lately. You've got a screener in here. You've got the free man in here, like we said with Erdegaard for Palmer. And it brings that two-man dynamic back to the forefront, where what we actually start to see is more of a front two again. Back in the old days of the 4-4-2, we start to see those combinations again that could really hurt teams, I think. And I do think that's a shift that we're starting to see, not only with the man-to-man pressing, but just the idea of being a bit more direct and going with the flow of the game a little bit more. And Pep spoke about this as well, the sort of shift towards the Iraola style of football, of being a little bit more direct, going a little bit more towards goal at pace, and trying to just make something happen sort of in the flick of a switch. And I think having that two-man partnership who can cause a little bit of chaos with their movement and their connections, and again, just being able to occupy it. Say you're in a back four, being able to occupy both centre halves and then make sort of combinations between the two of them. I think it could be really, really important to the future of the game and the next tactical shift that we could see going forwards, with some of the players being brought in, like I say, like Marmoush, like the links to Watkins, like the links to Tell for a few clubs, because it's not just Chelsea. Imagine Tell and Solanke, similar thing, I think. Solanke, if it was Tottenham, Tell being able to drift in off that left hand side. Again, while Solanke's out, Tell might start in the middle with Son on the left, but Tell could be that long term Son replacement to create that same dynamic. So I think it really could be something that we're starting to see a shift towards. So I do want you to let me know any questions you have about this tactical sort of theory that we could be seeing before our very eyes as that little shift takes its turn in the Premier League. Again, this is not just I could speak about loads of different options. I think Kudus at West Ham. If you go watch my West Ham video which I uploaded yesterday, I explained pretty much a similar thing, a similar theory of Kudus playing in that sort of advanced 10 where he can attack the box, drive, and get that high volume of shots off, playing off of a more of a target man striker such as Fulkrug, or if they sign Ferguson, for example. So do drop a like to support the channel. Let me know any other videos you'd like to see. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.